All right, back on the Young Turks. Now we're talking to Mark Feldstein. He is the author of Poisoning the Press, Richard Nixon, Jack Anderson, and the Rise of Washington's Scandal Culture. Mark is also teaches media and public affairs at George Washington University. He's won a George Foster Peabody Public Service Award, and in fact, he's won it twice. That's quite impressive. All right, Mark, welcome to the Young Turks.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
First of all, you got fascinating things in your book, but I would like to tease the audience a little bit by telling them we might have a slight fun disagreement towards the end of this, so that'll be interesting.
Go for it.
Okay, but first, let's find out the facts. I think a lot of people in this day and age might not even know who Jack Anderson is. So tell us who Jack Anderson is.
Well, that's true. He's the most important famous reporter that no one under the age of 60 ever heard of, but he was what Bob Woodward and Cy Hirsch and I don't know who else mixed together all were in his day. The most famous and feared investigative reporter of his time, 1950s to 1970s, and he drove the Nixon administration crazy up to and including a plot to murder him.
Yeah, okay, that's crazy. Really? That's my question to you. Really?
Really. It didn't come in a vacuum. They had 25 years of going after each other. Anderson exposed almost every scandal Nixon was associated with long before he came to the White House. And then the White House tried a whole bunch of other ways to stop him that failed, ultimately leading to this assassination plot. I can tell you what they are if you want.
Yeah, I definitely do want. But first, let's do the assassination plot. What was, like, how were they planning to kill him? Like, drop him out of an airplane, or what was the idea?
Well, Gordon Liddy, your fellow talk show host,
my colleague,
back when he was committing the kinds of felonies for which he went to prison, and Howard Hunt, another famous name from the past, met at a block from the White House at the Hay Adams Hotel with a CIA poison expert, and they discussed various ways of administering a poison to this investigative reporter that wouldn't show up in an autopsy. Then, after that was done, Liddy and Hunt surveilled Anderson, tailed him from his work in downtown Washington to his home, checking the route he drove to see what the best way to crash their car into him, so it would flip over and burn and he would die in what appeared to be an accident. And then they staked out his house, looking for vulnerabilities, as Hunt put it, where they could break in and kill him in his home.
These people are psychos, man. I mean, G. Gordon Liddy talks as if he's some sort of patriot, as if he's some sort of American hero. I mean, what a thug and a lowlife that guy is.
Well, he still defends his plot to kill Anderson. He still thinks it was the right thing to do. What can I say? And these are the guys, you know, George W. Bush and the current Republican Party didn't come out of nowhere. This is their direct descendants. Fox News was Richard Nixon's idea. He didn't call it Fox News. He called it a conservative fourth network, and it was his acolyte Roger Ailes who put it into place. Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, Karl Rove all got their start with Richard Nixon. This was his revenge on all of us.
So let's talk about some of the other crazy plots that Nixon had against Jack Anderson. They also underframe him for being gay, right? Which he wasn't.
That's right. He was a devout Mormon, 9 kids, a little homophobic himself. But in those days, the worst thing they could say about you, other than being a communist, was that you were gay. You know, one was the enemy abroad, the other was the enemy at home, as they saw it. And yet, Nixon became convinced that Anderson and his junior reporter at the time, a long-haired hippie named Britt Hume, now with Fox News, were homosexual, and that Anderson had a gay relationship with one of the sources who gave him classified documents. Sexual up the ass is how the president not so delicately put it in the White House tapes. And they sat around, and you should hear what they say about Britt Hume. Oh, he's too pretty. He just looks gay. Yeah, you can tell. His demeanor's curious. Charles Colson was, one of the ones saying that, the born-again Christian who advised the Bush White House.
God, there's so many great things in this. First of all, his demeanor is curious.
What can I say? He just looks it. He's too pretty.
Well, Brit Hume solved that problem he had earlier. But I'm a bad guy. So the Anderson, they said he's sexual up the ass. And then apparently Nixon...
Just in case you didn't know what gay meant, that was Nixon defining it, I guess.
Right, that's a quote from Nixon.
That's an actual quote from the President of the United States.
And here's another quote, and we're not supposed to curse here, but this is for political reasons. Nixon called Anderson a, quote, shit ass. But,
yeah, I hate it when that happens. That was bastard, son of a bitch, all those things are in the Nixon tapes.
Okay, but isn't that logical? Shit ass? I mean, is that...
Well, maybe it's redundant. But, yeah, I mean, he used the C word talking about his own wife, so what can I say?
Right, let alone all the things that he said about Jews, and the list goes on and on. So now...
And Mormons, by the way, that was one of the big surprises, because they were, the most conservative Republican supporters of Nixon. But he called them stupid and scabs on the tapes.
I don't know why Mormons are scabs, but I fail to see Nixon's logic oftentimes. And then everybody was obsessed about this gay thing. Everybody's accusing one another of being gay. Who else? There's J. Edgar Hoover.
Well, Anderson himself used gay outings. He was one of the first to do that, and he was one of the first reporters to introduce the notion of investigating the private lives of public figures in the modern era. So, yeah, he started with Joe McCarthy and compiled evidence that Joe McCarthy was gay. He didn't have enough proof, so he leaked it to some other folks, including a lawyer who got it in a court record so he could then quote it in the column because it was legally protected. He went after Governor Ronald Reagan's aides and outed them for being gay. He even investigated 2 Nixon aides for being gay. They weren't. But it stirred up a major panic in the White House, and most famously, he went after J. Edgar Hoover, trying to prove he had a gay relationship with his aide Clyde Tolson, rummaged through his trash, and Hoover went berserk.
So, right now, the thing is, Hoover, look, honestly, I presume is gay, but we know he's a cross-dresser, right? So,
well, no, that's not a very well substantiated allegation, but
really?
He clearly had an unusual, intimate relationship with Clyde Tolson. Whether it was physically acted upon or not, I think those men took to their grave site. But Anderson did have a source, a police inspector, who said that he had interviewed witnesses who had supposedly seen the 2 men in restaurants rubbing their knees together, grabbing each other's asses, as he put it. So, exactly what happened, we don't know. What we do know is that Hoover went berserk when Anderson, wrote this innuendo-laced stuff and went after Anderson in turn.
Was he making up the stuff about McCarthy? Is there any truth?
No, there really were affidavits signed by men claiming homosexual liaisons with McCarthy. They were never substantiated, but that was also an era when the press didn't pry, except for Jack Anderson, didn't pry into the private lives of people. If those could have been proven, it might well have ended McCarthyism early on, especially since he was, made his campaign against communists and queers, as he put it.
Well, you know what? Based on that alone, he probably was. I mean, what we've learned now throughout all these years with anybody who's coming out that strong against gay rights, 8 out of 10 times, and I'm being generous here, winds up being gay themselves.
Well, obviously I wasn't there, but I do know that one of the items Anderson published was that Hoover had seen a psychiatrist in Washington, and the psychiatrist's widow later said that he visited him because he was paranoid about people finding out that he was homosexual.
And so then Hoover also had sexual dirt on Ford, right? Gerald Ford?
Well, Hoover had sexual dirt on everybody, from JFK on. But the big surprise I found in my research was Gerald Ford, who later became president, and everyone thinks of as a straight arrow. But in fact, a witness who was involved in essentially running a kind of pimping out women, if you will, on the Hill, says that Jerry Ford was one of the ones who took advantage of this with a call girl named Ellen Ramich, and that they would meet at the Carlton Hotel for liaisons that were paid for by a lobbyist in Washington, and that the FBI began a corruption probe and tape recorded what was going on in the hotel rooms, including Ford's encounters with this call girl. This is according to Bobby Baker, who's a pretty credible source, I'd say, on this stuff. And there's some contemporaneous evidence that backs it up, although it's circumstantial, but it appears pretty substantive.
We're talking to Mark Feldstein. He wrote the book Poisoning the Press, and he also teaches media and public affairs at George Washington University, and he's won a couple of Peabody Awards. And one more thing about all this sex nonsense. Tell me what Hoover made up about Martin Luther King to smear him.
Well, it's so filthy I can't say it on the air. And by the way, let me just add, history is a lot more interesting than the civics textbooks ever let on. And I think my book, if you read my book, you'll see that. But Hoover was busy leaking. I mean, Hoover did bug Martin Luther King's hotel rooms, and he did come across, evidence of his adultery, and the FBI did tape record him having sex with women who weren't his wife. Hoover, who hated King, leaked that stuff to Jack Anderson and other reporters, transcripts of just absolutely filthy things that supposedly King said in the throes of passion. In fact, it appears that they couldn't tell one African-American voice from another and confused King's voice with with some of his aides, but that was enough for him. They leaked that. They leaked erroneous allegations that King, after winning the Nobel Peace Prize, went running naked down a hotel room in a hotel chasing after a couple of prostitutes while drunk. I mean, that's how crazed it got. And that's the clean stuff they leaked.
All right, you know what? I'm going to tell the audience, but in a somewhat cleaned up version. Now, Hoover makes up that Martin Luther King is, as Mark just told you, running down the hall naked after prostitutes drunk, yelling, "I love eating." Okay.
Well, I think the exact phrase was, "I am the best blank eater in the world."
Come on, man. So, I mean, people were having fun back then, man, making all this stuff up and playing these games with one another. So, Mark, as
you know what's amazing, though, is even the most segregationist newspapers, the most racist editors didn't run that stuff, because in that day you didn't talk about sex, you didn't out sex, and besides, probably most of those editors were doing the same thing that Hoover was accusing King of, so that was a dangerous, slippery slope for him.
Well, so, Mark, that gets to our slight disagreement here, right?
Okay.
So, because your thesis is that, so this era of, Jack Anderson, and Jack Anderson had his own ethical problems in a lot of different ways, which we can get into, eventually led to the press as it is now. But I actually think the press as it is now is incredibly muted and incredibly tame. And so I'm not sure I'm buying that part of the thesis, to be honest.
Well, we don't disagree, really. I think they're tame in substance and shrill and vitriolic in style. Substantively, they're not, and they're linked, because there's all this, sort of what I call scandal culture in Washington, this obsession with sex and titillation and gossip. They're not going after the substantive investigative reporting that Jack Anderson did, by the way, and other people did in an earlier era, that is really so crucial. They're not looking at, offshore oil drilling giveaways before there's a BP explosion, or, the dangers to New Orleans, or financial derivatives and all those things before they blow up. They are neglecting their watchdog role, and so there I suspect we agree. In favor, instead of this titillation, it's really just about chasing corporate profits, not about really engaging in the watchdog role under the First Amendment that they should be engaged in.
Well, you're right. I think we do agree on that because, look, the titillation stuff is easy, and it doesn't endanger anybody's pocketbook, right?
Nope, and it's cheap, and it does get the ratings up, and it does get the eyeballs popping, and that's what it's all about. This is capitalism.
Yeah, and then nobody's corporate interests are bothered, and they'll use the excuse, oh, well, if we do real, journalism on derivatives or whatever, that'll bore people, whereas sex is fun and exciting.
Well, that's right. And so that's what we've replaced, the media's fiddling while the planet burns. How much do you hear about global warming? We're literally burning. And, we hear a lot more about Britney Spears than we do about
in fact, we hear more about massages that Al Gore got.
Yeah, or didn't get.
Or didn't get.
Than the fact that he's a prophet with a PH trying to warn us, of something that's, the most important issue on the planet.
Right. And, Mark, so lastly, you think Jack Anderson started this whole thing, that before that they weren't really getting into people's sex lives? Anderson says, well, two can play at this game. If Hoover's going to do it, Nixon's going to do it, I'm going to do it back at them. And then people pick up on that, and it just picked up until we hit Clinton, et cetera.
Yeah, in the modern era, that's right. In the first days of the Republic, things are pretty nasty and vitriolic, but then it quieted down, and the media really got in bed with the powers that be. And Anderson did some great substantive stuff. We haven't talked about that was really a lot more important than this sex stuff. He was the WikiLeaks of his day, the first to really publish classified documents on any regular basis. And he ripped the bark off the Nixon administration, and he exposed their deceit and duplicity in foreign policy. He actually held press conferences where he would pass out classified documents that he obtained to other reporters, gleefully doing so, much like WikiLeaks is doing today. And he was utterly fearless. So, the sex scandals that he also used shouldn't overshadow what really was an important public service. And for all his faults, and they were many, he's not a simple figure, and that's part of what makes him so interesting. But for all his faults, I wish we had more like him today.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask you as my final question. Because he's got massive faults. He's breaking laws. He's taking money. You got to read Mark's book. There's so many interesting things going on about Jack Anderson, Nixon, Hoover, all these guys, right? But Anderson's a long, long story as to all his upsides and downsides. But in the end, you'd rather have him than not have him.
Well, yeah, he cut corners. He engaged. He would pay money to sources. He would blackmail sources. Not as occasionally, not all the time. But he did break some big stories that way. And you know what? I'm willing to overlook somebody doing some of that stuff. If I wish someone had done that on Bush's non-existent WMD, and if there had been a Jack Anderson around getting access to classified documents proving that the Bush administration was lying about that and saved us going into a war needlessly, I can overlook a lie or even paying the source who provided the documents. I don't teach my journalism students to do that, but I think as a moral calculus, it's justifiable.
Mark, if he worked for major publications, though. If Jack Anderson existed now, there's no way any of the major publications would hire him. No way.
Well, that's true, but he had something that kept him they didn't like him, the establishment media. They ran his column on the comics page on the Washington Post to show their disdain, but they couldn't censor him. Oh, yes, this paper or that paper could spike his column, but he was in 1,000 newspapers at the time, so that's what gave him the independence and the autonomy. He wasn't he had a mainstream audience, an enormous audience, but he didn't work for any single mainstream publication. And I'm hoping that maybe someday the Internet will allow another Jack Anderson to reemerge.
Oh, no.
That independence that you have on the Internet might be even greater than what the syndicated column, which was a new technology for its time, offered Anderson.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to finish up by saying if there's going to be a new Jack Anderson, he's definitely going to be a blogger.
Well, he sure ain't going to be working for the mainstream media.
No, absolutely not. All right, Mark Feldstein, a great, interesting book called Poisoning the Press. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Go get him.
All right, thank you. All right, Young Turks.